turn down mess over here. Save your questions to the end. And make sure you mute yourselves. Please, please, please make sure you mute yourselves. I heard someone here. Let me see here. Make sure you're muted, okay, guys? Whoa. You see now, everybody disappeared. And how do I get everybody back? Let's see. Let's do that. Okay. Perfect. All right, so what do we want to talk about today? What do we want to talk about today? We want to talk about the refi. The refi. A lot of people tend to get a little bit impatient. A lot of people ask questions like, man, you know, this cash flow, 5 on 5, like 5% cash on cash, you know, 5%, you know, they invest 100K, right? And then they say, okay, 5%, what's the return? 5% cash on cash? 5% cash on cash? Well, that's only $5,000 a year, right? And so what most people don't realize is that investing, it's a long-term game. And so what I want to go through is, you know, the lifetime, and we're gonna get into that when we get into the PowerPoint. But right now, you know, I want to talk a little bit of the refi, because it's not just the cash flow that we're after. We're after some of those refis, and after this, you're gonna know why I say that. So, first of all, the refi flip. So you might have heard me refer in multiple different videos to the refi flip. But someone says, do you know how to do a BRRRR or a flip to yourself? These are all the same thing, my friends. So when 20 years ago, when I started in real estate, 20 plus years ago, we called it a refi flip, because essentially you're flipping it, but you're flipping it back to yourself. You are not selling it as a flip. So at some point you add value where you can flip the deal. But in this case, you're refining it. So we called it a refi flip. Now, some people call it a BRRRR, the BRRRR strategy. That's more because of YouTube. You know, people have coined this BRRRR strategy. So what does this mean? Hey, buy, renovate, rent, refi, repeat. Buy, renovate. Now, why do I like the refi flip? Because the refi flip, when you buy, you renovate, that's the misleading part, because you don't always have to renovate to increase value, especially with commercial properties. Whoops. Make sure to let people into the room here. Make sure we're going to let everybody into the room. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're coming in, make sure to mute yourselves. Make sure to mute yourselves. Please, please, please. Please mute yourselves. Okay, good. Perfect. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, so we're talking about the refi, and we're talking about the history of these names, right? So some people call it the refi flip. Some people call it a BRRRR. The BRRRR is it's a coin name, you know, buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. The only thing is, hey, you don't always have to renovate. So you could do without an R, right? In some areas they call it a flip to yourself. So essentially you are flipping it back to yourself, right? What better person to buy that property from you than yourself?
Alfonso, sorry, did you remember to record? Gavin just pointed it out.
It's recording. Oh, hold on a second. Perfect. It's not recording. Whoa, thank you.
Recording in progress.
But thank you for that, David. You know, if it wasn't for David, this would have been a session that we would have forgot about. But I have a backup recording over here. So we're talking about the refi. Essentially, we're talking about the history of the refi flip and the different names. So now this is as of 2018, you started to hear BRRRR, the BRRRR strategy. Essentially, some people call it a flip to yourself. So it's a refinance, but it's like you're almost benefiting from the profits right away. The proper term, I would say, it's actually a debt restructure, right? So you have current debt on the property. You're just restructuring the debt so you have more debt. Essentially, it gives you the ability to reuse the same down payment multiple times. So you can start with a property right now. You put in that $100,000 that we talked about, right? So we talked about this $100,000, which would equal one property. You're getting a 5% return, and people would say, "Hey, wait a minute, that 5% return, that's not that sexy. You know, I'm only getting $5,000 a year cash on cash return." But if you can continue to use that money, pull it out and use it multiple times on multiple different properties, now that becomes interesting. So you get to reuse the same down payment multiple times. So one property can give you 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different properties. It does help you because when you refinance, because it is a debt structure, a debt restructure, it's not really like you were selling the property. So if you sold the property, if you actually flipped the property, this would be considered to be a taxable event. But you are not selling the property. You are still, the property has still not changed hands. And so you get to avoid the capital gains because it's not actually a sale, but you get to tap in to the profits or the lift on the property without having to sell it, which is what makes it fun in the first place, which is why I call it a refi flip, because it's like you are creating value in that property, but instead of flipping it, you actually refi it and pull the profits out. So it is tax-free. And so at the end of the day, my friends, that is an option. You can always sell the property depending on the profits. But you know what? To have tax-free money, we'll go through some of a case study on how that works and how you could see that in a portfolio throughout 5 to 10 years. Now, here's the other thing. You actually get to keep the property, which is what you want to do. You want to build a portfolio. You want to keep the property. And so that's the refi flip. Most people cannot be patient, right? Most people, they get too impatient because everybody wants instant results. Now, the BRRRR, the refi, doesn't need to happen within the first year, right? Because a lot of people are looking for that unicorn deal where you can, refi that money back out within six months to a year. But what I like is that, let's say you bought a property every year. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You bought a property every year. So this is year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every year you bought a property. Let's say it was $1 million property. So every year you bought $1 million property. Now, it would be tough because essentially at the very beginning of this investment, you're the cash flow, it may not be a strong cash flowing property. You may only see 4 to 5% cash on cash. But what I love about year number 6 is that you still bought your $1 million property, but you may be pulling out in year number 6. You may be pulling out, let's call it $200K from your property, right? And so every year after that, we'll call this 10. Every year after that, not only are you continuing to buy, let's say $1 million property, but every year after that, you're pulling out $200K, right? Now, what I love is year number 11. If we go like this, so we got 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Year number 11, you're going back to year number, the property you bought in year number 1, and you're pulling out another 200,000. But you're also going back to the deal that you bought in year number 6. So now you bought yourself another $1 million deal, but you're pulling out another 200K, another 200K, and then this kid keeps going. I'm on year 20. I'm on year 20 of doing this. What I'm going to show you in just a moment, I'm going to show you a case study of what this looks like over time, in real time. So you can see multiple different refis on properties. But this is something that people can't wait for. You see, the year number 11, if you do this every single year, I mean, let's say you're pulling out 2, 3, 4, 500,000. Now, the properties that you're buying does make a difference. For example, if you're buying small properties, well, when you're doing all your refis all the way up in year number 10 or beyond, you know, yeah, you're pulling a little 40, you're pulling a little 50, you're pulling a little 100,000. But when you buy significant properties, $1 million properties, what happens is that refi effect takes place, and you're now pulling out big chunks of money. And here's the key to all this. All of these amounts are tax-free. And so, of course, cash flow is sexy, but cash flow is taxable. It's earned income. And so I'm more focused on the potential of the deal, because once I get into a situation when I have multiple properties refining in the same year, that becomes extremely interesting. So I'm going to stop this recording.